Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be having a little bit of fun with some makeup because I wanted to give thanks to some of my fellow small beauty creators who I've made friends with along the way and share with you some of the products that they have influenced me to purchase. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So I've already done my skincare and I have got the Canmake Mermaid Skin UV Gel, which my friend Brittany from BMS Beauty, who was one of the first smaller creators that I became friends with when joining YouTube, she recommended this in one of her videos. So when I placed my order with YesStyle, I picked this up and it is a phenomenal primer. So absolutely love this. So to prep my lips, I'm going to use the LANEIGE Lip Glowy Balm in Berry. I want to add a little bit of a glow and a luminosity to the perimeter of my face. So I'm going to use the LOreal True Match Lumi Glotion, and this is in Fair. So with this product, I just take like a fingertip amount and rub it between the pads of my finger, and then I just like to kind of tap it on the high points of my cheek, blend down, we'll add a little bit to the bridge of my nose, a little bit just to the perimeter of my forehead. And what I want to do here is I just want to add a nice glow base to my foundation, because the powder foundation we're using, it has more of a natural matte finish, so I want it to look a little bit more luminous, because here in Toronto, summer is coming to an end, we're entering fall, the temperature's cooling down, my skin's feeling a little bit more dry, a little bit more dehydrated, so I want to make it look more supple and plump. So adding a little bit of glow under the space will help achieve more of a luminous look overall. Before I go in and apply any type of my coverage products, I'm going to take a dampened beauty sponge and I'm just going to use this sponge to press in those creamy complexion products, so that way everything can really meld into the skin and become part of the skin. I want to go ahead and add a little bit of concealer to my eyes just to brighten everything up. And for my under eye brightening, I used a different sunscreen because the Canmake sunscreen, this is an all chemical filter sunscreen. So this one in particular doesn't bother me around the eyes, but with my skin feeling a little bit more sensitive lately, I want to err on the side of caution. So I picked up this product recently when it launched in Canada, and this is the Supergoop Bright Eyed, and this is an all mineral sunscreen. What I love about it is the tint. You can see it has a beautiful sheer kind of like pinky color. So I'll apply it on the back of my hand. So there it is, kind of like a rough look at it. A little bit of a pinky peach tint. And since it's all mineral, it doesn't irritate me around the eyes. And where I have a little bit of a blue-purple discoloration under my eyes just from having that thinner skin under the eyes and seasonal allergies, it gives me a little bit of brightening. So on days when I don't want to wear makeup, this has been a lifesaver and just adds a little extra pep to my step when I'm just wearing skincare. For concealer, I am going to be using the new Lancome Teint Idole Ultra Wear All Over Concealer. I have the shade 110C. This is a fraction too dark for me. However, of the different shades they have in the fair category, this is the best match for me, as the other two went a little too yellow. So I am going to take this straight from the doe foot applicator, and I am going to apply a dot towards my inner corner, a little bit towards the outer corner, sides of my nose, my chin, and I'll add a little bit right here, just to be on the safe side because my nose can get a little red. This concealer I picked up after seeing Angie from Hot and Flashy. She raved about the Mackie Complete Concealer, which has been one of my favorites, but shortly after I began my YouTube channel, it was discontinued, so had to find a new concealer, and she raved about this one. I picked it up. It's phenomenal. However, a little bit goes a very long way. So to blend my concealer out with, I am going to be using the Sonia G Soft Concealer Brush from the Fusion series. And these brushes, I've seen a few different people talk about them. However, it was Traci from Makeup Journey, I think it was called Brush Junkie or Makeup Brush Junkie. She does some of the best luxury makeup brush reviews. She's very thorough and very in-depth, and I've started chatting with her back and forth in the comments. She is very sweet. So she raved about these brushes. I picked up the full series from Beautylish and they are wonderful. So I'm going to use this to blend in that concealer, really working it where I need the most coverage, letting it set, and then I'm going to continue blending it out. Now, I really enjoy this brush because it's a very soft brush, it's very flexible, it's very movable on the skin, but it does a great job at blending out cream products. And some of the other brushes in this collection, I really enjoy for applying cream blush and cream bronzer. They're just really, really wonderful. Whatever's left, I'm gonna run just over the tail of my brow, and then I'm gonna go back and feather over this concealer. So before I set that in place, I'm going to use the point of the Real Technique sponge, and I'm just going to press that over to marry it into the skin. So to set that in place, I'm going to use the Pat McGrath Under Eye Blurring Powder in Light, and this powder is phenomenal. It's very expensive because it is quite small. However, you need a teeny tiny amount, and using with a fluffy brush, I really love this e.l.f. Eye Fluffy Blender brush. And what I like to do is I will generally just run my brush along the perimeter of the powder, as it does kick up when you swirl into it. That is enough to go through and set my under eyes. And I generally like to do this in 2 steps. So I'll do a gentle press over first, just to kind of set everything down. Then I'll take my brush, do another swirl around the perimeter, and I'll go through it and lightly buff over just to smooth everything out. So we are going to move into our foundation, and I am going to be using the Laura Geller Baked Balance-N-Brighten Powder Foundation. I use the shade Porcelain. Now when I purchased this, I picked up Porcelain and Fair, as I was not sure which shade. Fair runs a little too dark, a little too orangey for me, and the Porcelain is a little too light for my face. However, it tends to kind of balance out the tones on my face and my neck and my chest, so it's gonna look a little light when it goes on, but it's a beautiful foundation. And I picked up the Laura Geller products we're going to be using today after seeing Leanna Dalton, whose channel is Leanna Dalton here on YouTube. She was raving about some of the products she received in a mystery box, so I was inspired. I picked up the products and they are wonderful. And Leanna, she and I have chatted a fair bit on Instagram, and she's a genuinely really sweet person. If you have not checked out her channel, highly recommend it. Now, Leanna really loves using the BK Beauty number 101 brush for powder foundation. I like this brush. I have tried using it also for powder foundation. It is great. However, I have another brush, and this brush is the Koyudo Fupa brush, and this is another one that Traci from Makeup Journey talked about. She talked about not this one in particular, she talked about a few of the other Koyudo brushes from Beautylish. So I was in the market for the perfect foundation brush. This recently arrived, so I want to try it out with this powder foundation. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that powder foundation. With this powder foundation, compared to some of the other ones where you can buff it on, I find this works best when you swipe it on, just to lay the product down. And this is another reason why I like to set the concealer, because you are going to be swiping your product. So any liquids or creams that are not set underneath can move around. And this brush is very expensive. I believe it was around $92 here in Canada. However, I picked it up with one of like the beauty rewards, like the $20 or $25 beauty rewards that Beautylish was giving away during a promotional event. So took off some of the price, but this brush is really lovely for applying your powder foundations. It's a little bit stiffer than you would anticipate, but it does such a good job at blending the product into the skin. And with this powder foundation, I find it best when you lay down your product by swiping it on the face, and then you can go back and buff it and work it into the skin. And it does such a nice job. And the marbleized colors in here do such a nice job at just kind of balancing and brightening everything out, like the name would suggest. So I have really been enjoying this. And you know me, I don't like a very full coverage look, so this is more than enough for me. I'm just using what's left in the fibers of the brush to go through, blend everything out, and then I'm gonna step back, look into my mirror, see if I want to add coverage anywhere. I think I want to do a little bit of spot touching up. So I want to add a little bit more just up here on my forehead and a little bit more to my chin. Now, the LOreal powder foundation, this came in a value set, which included her retractable kabuki brush, the bronzer, or the highlight, and the blush we're going to be using today. The brush that came with this, I was not a big fan of. It just didn't do it for me. And I also purchased her powder brush separately, and that one was kind of a little bit of a letdown too. So the brushes that I received from the range weren't my favorite, but the powder products are phenomenal. And this Koyudo Fupa powder foundation brush is wonderful. If you're looking to invest in a powder brush, this is really good. So we are going to move on to highlighting, and I'm going to use one of the LOreal products I picked up, or that came in that kit. So this is her original baked highlighter in the shade French Vanilla. I've heard about this for years. I was so curious to try it, but my issue is the shade is darker than my skin tone, so it didn't work out for me, but I love the texture. So I went back on the LOreal website and I picked up another shade, and this is perfect. This is the baked original highlighter in the shade French Kiss right next to it, and you can see it's just a nice matte pink highlighter. It's not a complete matte. It has a soft, kind of satiny, radiant finish to it that it's just really beautiful. To apply that, I am going to use my Sonia G Fan Pro brush. Since this doesn't have a lot of shine or reflect to it, I am going to use this as a more kind of broad placement because I want to add light to the cheekbone to create this more just kind of like bright look to my skin. And since this doesn't have a notable shimmer, it's a really nice product for just smoothing out the texture of the cheek. A lot of times people can get a lot of texture around this cheek area, or even kind of milia through here. So adding a highlighter that isn't overly glittery is really nice for just adding luminosity without drawing attention to anything you don't want to emphasize. Now, I do want a little bit of glow and illumination to the skin, so I'm going to use another product, and this is the Dior Forever Couture Luminizer in shade 02 Pink Glow. This is such a wonderful product. I picked this up, and before I got my review up, I saw another one of my friends here on YouTube, Maria from Nightstar Beauty. She also purchased, she was raving about it. She absolutely loved it, and I was not disappointed. This is such a stunning highlight. It has a light reflect to it. However, it's not one of those reflective highlights that really emphasizes the skin texture in an unflattering way. It just adds a nice kind of creamy glow to the skin. So I'm going to use that with the same brush, and I'm going to apply it to the highest point of my cheekbone. And then I'm going to buff it in. Lately, I've been using this with the Refer number 20 fan brush. Today I want to try out the Sonia G. With this brush, it does have a similar application to the Refer number 20, but it's a little bit more dense, so you do get more color payoff. It's still not emphasizing skin texture, but we will go back and just smooth it out a little bit more in just a moment. Now we are going to jump back into the LOreal products that Leanna suggested, and I am going to use possibly one of the best bronzers I've tried in a long time. This is the LOreal Baked Balance-N-Brighten and Fair. And just a little bit of background on me and my skin. I am very fair. I have neutral to cool, slightly muted undertones, and my background is Irish and German, so when I go out in the sun, I don't really tan, I burn, I turn quite pinky red, and this bronzer has this beautiful kind of like pink swirl within the product, and it just looks so realistic on my skin. For a while, the Gucci bronzer in 01 Fair was my favorite bronzer for the color. However, this might have knocked it down, and it's a fraction of the price. I believe it's half the price of the Gucci bronzer. So I'm gonna apply this with the BK Beauty number 103 brush. I'm gonna start back on the hairline, and I'm gonna buff it nice and high on the cheeks because I wanna add warmth, I wanna add lift to the skin. But since we're going into the cooler months, I'm fair, I don't tan, I wanna add a little bit of shape and glow to the skin without trying to contour. So I am using the bronzer just to add warmth to my skin without trying to add structure, because if you've seen my how to contour video, you know that I like to keep bronzing and contouring very separate. So I'm just using this nice and high on the cheekbone and working that into the skin, keeping this more so on the perimeter of my face that will help add that shape. I'm gonna take a little bit more, and now I'm gonna run it just across center of my forehead, center of my nose, center of my chin, whatever's left. I'm gonna take it onto the side and inner part of my neck and my ears, just to keep everything looking balanced and cohesive. But you can see it's just a nice subtle bronzer, and even though I'm fair and I don't tan well, I still like a little bit of a warmth to my skin. And this bronzer, the texture, the formula, the color, it's perfect. It is a chef's kiss bronzer. If you are someone with very fair skin, more pinky, cool undertones, I think you will really love this. So now we are gonna add a little bit of blush to the skin. Laura Geller Baked Blush and Brighten in the shade Pink Buttercream. This blush has been on my wish list for years because I saw Sarah Hubler talk about this in one of her collection declutters, and she was talking how this was one of her favorite blushes, and her skin tone is similar to mine. She's a little bit more warm with her undertones, and I was so curious to try this color out. So I was excited to see when this came in the kit. I'm gonna apply this using the BK Beauty number 104. BK Beauty calls their tapered powder brush. However, this is a little bit bigger than I would use for my normal blush application, but for today, I'm not going for anything too precise. I'm going for a soft kind of watercolor effect with my product. So this is a nice brush for getting a soft, focused blush effect. So I'm gonna pick up a little bit of this Pink Buttercream shade. It is quite pigmented, so I need to tap a bit off. And I'm gonna once again start towards the back of my face. I'm gonna place this right into the temple. I'm gonna do large circular motions and then start kind of wrapping the color, bringing it just under the iris of my eye and working it back. Whatever's left, I'm gonna now work through, almost creating like a diamond shape and blending back into the hairline. So for me, adding this kind of veil of this blushy color over the bronzer, it helps to create more of a realistic effect for me, because it's gonna add a little bit more pinky warmth to the skin, but it's gonna marry in with the color of the bronzer to just make everything look more realistic and more harmonious. And I also like working blush into the forehead because it's gonna help, one, draw the eye up to create more of a lifted effect, but it's also going to just kind of play in the coloring, because if you think about adding a bronzer is used to mimic a tan, and all tans have a little bit of a base and a sunburn. So we're adding in that burn, but avoiding the damage. When I went back to pick up the highlighter in the lighter shade, I picked up another blush, and this is the Baked Blush and Brighten in the shade Ethereal Rose. This is a beautiful color. This is like that perfect in between kind of like transitional color between the Pink Buttercream blush and the French Kiss highlight. So I'm gonna work this color right between where the blush and the highlight meet. And this is just gonna help create that nice kind of watercolored effect I was talking about earlier. I'm not gonna put it on the nose or the chin or the neck, just because I don't wanna add shine to those areas. Now for our eyes, I am going to be using a palette I picked up a little bit ago. I meant to do a review on it when it was still new and hot, but I just never got around to it. And this is the Goss Luxury Eye Palette in Pearl. I was inspired to pick this up by my friend Maria at Nightstar Beauty and Kate of Kate Face. Both their channels are wonderful. They both do such wonderful, thorough reviews on luxury makeup, and I really enjoy watching them. So to get started, I'm gonna go into shade number 1 with a Sonia G Worker Pro brush. And I'm gonna use this as an all-over eyeshadow base, and I am gonna work this from lash line to brow. So next, I wanna create more shape to the eye. So I am gonna go in with a Goss number 18 brush, and I'm gonna take shade 3, which is this really pretty pinky color, tap off the excess. I'm gonna tilt my chin back, keep my eyelids relaxed, and I'm just going to work that shade back and forth like a windshield wiper motion, and then use some large circular motions to create a more round shape, making sure to keep the eyelid relaxed, keep everything blended. And then once I have that shape on both sides, I will show you what our next step is. So now I'm going to use the Goss number 20 brush, and I'm going to go into shade 5, which is this gray tone, and I'm going to press the point of my brush into that shade. I'm going to tilt my chin back, and then with keeping my brows relaxed, you can see where there's a shadowing from where the hood is projecting. And I'm going to lightly kind of exaggerate that shadow. It's just making that socket look deeper. In reality, all you're doing is creating the optical illusion of a shadow, which makes it look like you have more lid space than you do. The hood on my right eye is a little bit puffier than it is on my left. So doing the same technique, I am just going to keep looking side to side to mimic what's happening on the other side. So now that I have that on, I'm going to go back with my number 18 brush that we used to apply that more rosy tone, no additional product. Now you can lift the brow to stretch the skin and lightly blend right on top of the gray shade you just applied. And by having the residual product from that pink shade that we applied, it's just going to marry the colors together, slightly kind of blurring and muddying them together to create more of a naturally contoured effect to the eye. And then now, if you have a little bit of an edge, don't worry, we are going to go through it and blend it. I am going to now use my ring finger, and I'm going to shade 2, which is a light kind of pinky champagne color. Tilt my chin back so that way nothing falls down underneath. And I'm going to press this with my finger over my eyelid. And when you're applying this with the eyelid, keep it below that gray shade, because the last thing you're going to do is highlight that artificial shadow we created. I'm going to use my Goss number 16 brush. I'm just using this brush to blend everything together. And by lifting our brows, you're just creating a more taut surface, so it's a little bit easier to blend. And since you already have everything placed where you want it with the eye relax, it's just gonna be a little bit easier to blend. So once you have that blended to where you are happy, without any extra product, you're just gonna wrap it around to the lower lash line to give a little bit more of a cohesive look to the eyes. The Goss number 20, and I'm going to dot my brush between shades 4 and 5. And then right here on the lash line, I'm just gonna lightly create a liner effect. This doesn't have to be perfect, it's gonna be very, very subtle, but it's just gonna add a little bit of definition to the eye. And then I'm gonna go back in with the number 18 brush. You could also use the 20 brush if you want to. And I'm just gonna buff over that to help kind of smoke out the liner a little bit. Mascara's on, and since I'm creating more of an everyday look, I'm just gonna leave my brows alone because that's how I normally do my eyebrows, is I do nothing. So I'm gonna add a little bit of something to the lips and we will be finished. So to start off, I am going to line my lips lightly using the Pat McGrath Permagel lip pencil, and this is a newer shade in Bare Rose. I'm gonna take the pencil on its side, and with whatever of that LANEIGE lip glowy balm that's left on my lips, I'm just going to use this to create a sheer stain along the perimeter and feather it in. So you probably won't be able to notice anything really different with the lips. However, this color has a little bit of a sheerness to it, but it has enough opacity that when I apply it right here to the vermilion border of my lower lip, as that natural kind of pinkiness of my lip fades and goes into more of a blue purpley color, it just helps to kind of balance out and give my lips more of a uniform, my lips a better color, going from the inner part of my lip, which is the most pigmented, to the less pigmented part of the perimeter. I am going to take this L'Oreal Italian marbled lipstick in the shade Alfresco. So it's just a really beautiful kind of like dusty mauve nude. What I like about this shade, it has a neutral kind of pinky nude feeling to it. However, it has enough of a blue undertone to just really whiten up and brighten the smile. And last but not least, we are just going to finish everything off. I'm going to take the Versali 24 karat rose gold skin mist, and I'm just trying to finish this up. I think this was discontinued, and I'm going to use this just to kind of press all of those powder products into the skin. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to buff, and I'm going to use the Sicily loose powder in 01 Irises. And I have had this, I've used this on my channel before, but I was watching a video last weekend. Another YouTuber I really enjoy, her name is Liz, and her YouTube channel is called Chicago Law Luxury Makeup, and she was using this in number 2, which is the matte version, as a finishing powder. So I'm going to use this now in number 1 Irisy. This has a little bit of a light reflex to it, and I'm going to pick that up with a BK Beauty number 102, and I'm just going to pat in, and I'm just going to stamp that over, pick up a little bit more, and now you are going to buff. And all this is going to do is this is just going to marry everything together and smooth out the look. The Goss number 16 brush. In the last makeup video I posted, I did this technique with the Laura Mercier Candle Glow powder. And same thing, I'm just using my finishing powder and blend along the seam of the shadow. I hope you enjoyed this video. I had such a fun time creating this video, and I just wanted to give a shout out to some of the other small beauty creators that I've met along my journey over this last year of creating YouTube content. And if any of these YouTubers are new to you and you decide to check out their channel, tell them I said hello in the comment section, and I will see you all in the next video. If you enjoyed this, make sure you give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, as it helps my channel grow in the YouTube algorithm. I will see you all in the next video. Bye y'all.